Okay, I would like to call today's meeting of the Nevada Department of Transportation Board of Directors meeting to order for July 11th, 2022. If I could ask the clerk to take the roll, please.
Good morning, Governor Steve Sisolak.
Here.
Lieutenant Governor Lisa Cano Burkhead. Here. Controller Catherine Byrne.
Here.
Member Virginia Valentine.
Here.
Member Stephen Esquaga.
Here.
Member Justin Kell.
Here.
And Member Gary Perea.
Here.
Governor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. I'll move on to item number 2, public comment. This is the first time set aside for public comment. Anyone wishing to address the board on any item on today's agenda. Items that are on the agenda, please step forward, identify yourself for the record, and comments will be limited to 3 minutes. I'll start in Las Vegas. Do we have anybody in Las Vegas for public comment? All these people, nobody's for public comment, huh? Okay, do I have anybody in Carson City for public comment?
Good morning, Governor. We have nobody registered for public comment, and I don't see anybody approaching the podium.
Okay, do we have any written or telephonic public comment?
We do not.
Okay, I'll close item number 2, public comment, move on to item number 3, the director's report.
Good morning, members of the board. I'd like to start today with safety, as I always do. We've not yet received the state's fatality report, so I'm going to, you see a blank slide up there, but I'm going to talk about what we're doing to address one of the top contributors to fatalities in the state. That is speed. So speeding isn't just a behavioral issue. It can be enabled and even exacerbated by ineffective safety policies and roadway design. So we are really looking at speed management and developing a speed management action plan. We launched the plan in earlier this year, or actually last year, spring of 2021. It's working to develop strategies to manage speed on all roadways throughout Nevada. We're working with partner agencies, and the plan will identify the most effective engineering, enforcement, emergency medical, educational countermeasures and strategies to reduce speed-related crashes in a consistent and equitable manner across the state and all of our roads, not just our roads, which, as you may recall, are only 13% of the total statewide network. Some of the identified countermeasures include the use of cutting-edge technology, such as strategic monitoring sites. For us in Vegas, or anyone who's traveled through Vegas, you've seen one of those strategic monitoring sites is on southbound I-15, just south of Spring Mountain. You periodically see the elevated NSP officer car right there. That spot helps to alert folks to slow down. So that's one of the mechanisms. Countermeasures also include intersections using small modern roundabouts, mini roundabouts, textured surfaces, raised intersections, and vertical deflection, different than speed bumps. And then there's communications and education, using data and really trying to hone in on this. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, on the next couple of slides, why we're so focused on this and what speeding looks like in Nevada. So we know that speed, next slide, speed influences the risk of a crash. So you're more likely to get into a crash the faster you go, as well as the severity of the crash. In researching the data, we wanted to share some speeding related data. So on roads with speed limits over 60 miles an hour, and those are primarily the NDOT roads, speeding related crashes are more common and actually result in over half of all the speeding related crashes on roads with over 60 mile an hour speeds. But roads with speed limits greater than 60 miles an hour represent only 1/3 of fatal and serious injury crashes, which is sort of interesting. It's half of the crashes, but only 1/3 of the fatal and serious injuries. While 1/3 of the speeding related crashes occur on roads with speed limits between 30 and 49 miles per hour, half of the fatalities are on those roads. So it's interesting that 1/3 of the crashes are on our regular arterials throughout the state, but that represents half of the fatalities. So it's really important that we look at how we work with our local partners in the speed management action plan and delivery of speed management on the network. Another thing that we're looking at on the next slide is the breakdown by race and ethnicity. So when looking at the data from 2015 through 2019, Hispanic or Latino and American Indian and Alaska Native race and ethnicities have a slightly higher fatality rate per 100,000 population when compared to the total fatality rate in Nevada. For speeding related fatalities in Nevada, Hispanic or Latino and Black or African American has speeding related fatality rates higher than the average. So that's why we're really, it's not just that people are dying, we also have an inequitable impact of who's dying. And so we're really looking at trying to make sure we're bringing this into control. I've talked on the next slide, board members, we're getting you copies of the PowerPoint, but on the next slide, I've talked a little bit about the speeding over 100 mile an hour. This is just a touchback on that more and more people are choosing to drive these excessive rates of speed, going up from 3,500 citations in 2019 to 5,100 citations in 2021. And that's just the folks that got citations. That's just the folks that actually got caught. And so we know that we have a problem and it's getting worse, which is why we're really focusing on the speed management action plan. So next steps, Darren, we are right now working with our internal and external stakeholders to execute proposed strategies and actions. And I tell you that we're looking at executing it because we've already been talking about some of these strategies for years. So we're working on continuing to evaluate those, making sure that they're working. Working on actually getting our local partners to start taking action as well. We're going to evaluate the speed management action plan and really look at what the strategies we've rolled out. Are they working? Are they not working? Do we need to evolve? And then in 5 years or so, we will update the plan and incorporate the lessons that we've learned. One of the things that we've done just since I've been director is a lot of time local agencies will come to us and they'll ask, or a local community member will come to us and say, I live on this street or I travel this corridor on a regular basis and nobody is going 45 miles an hour. They're all going 70. We need you to do a speed study. So we go out, we do a speed study, and we find out indeed people are going far faster than what it's posted at. And historically, what the answer would be is, we'll raise the speed limit. We've actually taken a step back and said, well, why was the speed limit set that way? There was a reason why it was set that way. There's a reason, whether it was a school, whether it was commercial development, senior center, whatever it was, there was a reason why we set it at 45. And so we need to take a step back and say, before we just raise the speed limit, is the context the same as when we set it at 45 miles per hour? Or has the context changed? If the context changed and it's appropriate for a higher speed limit, then let's certainly raise the speed limit. If the context hasn't changed and we really do need that lower speed limit, then what do we need to do to the road to get folks to be in compliance with the speed, to make that road safe for the folks that are traveling it? So just an update. We've been talking about safety as my top talking point for 3.5 years. And I really am trying to focus in on what are we doing to try to make a difference in the roads and get different outcomes. So thanks for taking a minute to talk about our speed management plan with me. All right, moving on, HOV update. So as we committed in 2019, we were going to take a look at the HOV system and specifically the hours of operation on the HOV system. We did a lot of work behind the scenes, like on the computer network, to see what the results were. Could we do something different? Computer network said we might be able to do different hours. So now we're out there, we're putting up sensors. There's been a lot of media reports about the sensors that are going up. Our contractors installed 17 sensor locations across the Las Vegas Valley. Those sensors are using infrared technology and pictures aided by machine learning and artificial intelligence to not only count the number of vehicles in the HOV lanes, but to also determine how many occupants are in each vehicle. It's truly cutting edge technology because they had to develop a system that could look through the ceramic coating that is on our vehicles in Nevada. When you get your vehicle windows tinted in Nevada, it's a lot different tint than in a lot of other locations just because of the heat. So cutting edge technology, really looking at it. So we're looking at the number. We're also looking at and starting the process, which will be an ongoing process on compliance. How many are actually using the HOV lanes legally? I want to make sure to remind everyone the sensors are not being used for any sort of enforcement. It's just us learning and finding and getting the data that we need. The sensors will help collect data that may eventually lead to new pilot hours for the HOV lanes. If we determine that we're able to roll out different hours, we anticipate that'll be later this fall. And what will happen is if there's new hours, the signs will all change to reflect those new hours, and we'll evaluate on a 3-month basis to make sure that they're working. And if we need to, we'll adjust forward or back. So if it starts, with 3 hours are open for everyone, we might be able to go to 5, we might go back down to 2 or nothing. So we want to make sure we're keeping the system safe. We anticipate an 18 to 18-month study until we can finalize those hours. We're working with Federal Highways to make sure they're in agreement and compliance with the system. But we're listening to the community. We're trying to make sure that we're doing what works best to make sure that we're in compliance with our greenhouse gas emission goals. We're in compliance with, and we're also keeping the network safe. So working on it, more to come in the next couple of months. I wanted to provide an update on the 515 Viaduct project that's through downtown Las Vegas. If you've driven through downtown Las Vegas at all in the last year or so, you know that it's under construction. It's been under construction. But this morning, crews wrapped up a marathon work weekend. Both directions of the freeway over the weekend were reduced to one lane. We have another marathon weekend this Friday, July 15th. Well, it's for the weekend. And again, the freeway will be down to one lane through 5 a.m. Monday morning. These marathon weekends are needed for the restriping and paving as we look forward to the end of work on this project. This project was initially anticipated to extend through the end of the year, and we're now looking at it being done late summer. So we're really excited. They're going to be delivering it months early and get everybody back to moving as quickly as they can through the corridor, safely through the corridor. All right, contributing to the workforce. As we've been talking about every month, our program is a job creator, a job supporter, in addition to all of the great things it does for helping people get to where they need to go. On this particular board agenda, there are 85 job years that will be supported. Through last month, it was 8390. After approval of this agenda, 8,475 job years will be supported this fiscal year through the program and the projects that the board has voted on. So thank you. And then I just have one last thing. I understand we have a retiree who came today to be recognized. Year to date, we've had 27 team members retire, and we invite them on a quarterly basis to come and be recognized. They can't always come, but the ones that do, we're happy to recognize them. Today, we have with us Scott Harrell. He worked for NDOT from February of 1990 through March of 2022, 32 years, and was an associate engineer supervisor 3. He retired from our Sparks crew 904. And if we can, I'd love to just take a minute so we can do a picture with him. He's in Carson.
All right, we're gonna take about 3 photos here. 1, 2, 3. Couple more. 1, 2, 3. And last one here. 1, 2, 3. Looking good, thank you.
Thank you, Scott, for everything you've done.
Thank you, and again, congratulations to Scott, and we thank you very much. Do we have any questions for Director Swallow on the director's report?
The speed management plan, how often is that? 5? Did you say every 5 years?
Every 5 years.
Okay, and then throughout, what's that monitoring look like throughout that 5-year period?
So it's interesting. It's updated on an official basis every 5 years, but throughout the projects, we're looking, or through the process of that 5 years, we're looking at the projects that we're rolling out and determining whether or not we're seeing better compliance. Unfortunately, it's not always a direct thing because we don't have speed data on all of our roads, but we do go back. Are we seeing fewer crashes? Are we hearing fewer complaints about the speeds on them? And are the countermeasures working? If we put in a roundabout, is that actually working, or did it cause some other sort of systemic issue? So
Okay, is that done like?
it's
how often are you-
ongoing.
Okay,
It's ongoing.
so not set structured times that you're meeting?
Well, so all of this is in conjunction also with the Nevada Advisory Committee on Traffic Safety. And so they meet on a quarterly basis, and they also have subgroups. So on a quarterly basis, we're having conversations, if not more frequently than that.
Thank you.
Of course.
I had one on the fatality rate based on ethnicity. I mean, where are you going with that? What is is there because of speed? Is it because of the quality of the vehicles? What are we attributing that to?
There's lots of different reasons. I don't know the specifics in Nevada. We're starting to really dive into that. But some of the reasons I think that you could surmise is there's less car access So there's less equitable transportation means for a lot of people in the lower income groups, which also correlates with ethnicity. And so they tend to be more likely to be on foot or on a bike. And if you're not in a car, you're more likely to get hit, to die. A lot of the crashes occur on our arterials, which again, in the core parts of town, have higher populations of people of color. And so there's lots of different reasons. We're going to dive into it.
So are these people that are in car or not in cars? Is this what you're saying? They're not? in
Some of them
vehicles?
are in cars, some of them are not in cars.
Well, I think it'd be a pretty important thing to break out.
Oh, we certainly can break that out. Yeah, it's interesting, Governor. So in the 2021 legislative session, they actually started requiring that law enforcement start collecting the data on ethnicity within the vehicle. So we're going to start learning a lot more about the ethnic impact of crashes. But this is in alignment and correlates with national data as well. I can get you more information, maybe not at the next board meeting, but in the next couple board meetings.
Yeah, I know. I'm just wondering where you're going with this study. If we're spending time and money doing the study, how we're going to be able to come up with what we can do about it.
The answer is, do we need to, is that occurring in specific parts of our communities? If it is, should we be spending our safety dollars in those areas of town more than in some other areas of town? It's helping us identify where we need to target our safety dollars, safety investments.
Okay.
Governor, may I ask one question of Christina? This is
Please.
just in speaking with safety, and I've thought this, as you mentioned, this has been a highlight the last 3 years, Christina, but I've never heard, where are we at with the impaired driving? Is that, I think these other indicators are great, but I would also think that that's a major metric that you'd be looking at.
Yeah, I'll come back and talk a little bit more about impairment next month. There's a lot of data out there on impairment, and impairment continues to be a challenge. It is one of the leading contributors. Lately, they've started to collect data regarding multi-drug impairment. So it's no longer just alcohol. There might be other forms of it that's contributing to that impairment. So I can come back and do that as the focus next month about what we're seeing in impairment. I don't necessarily have an action plan on that, on how we're working to address that, but we can certainly bring back the data and have a little bit more of a conversation about that.
Thank you.
Any further questions up north? Okay, seeing none, I'll move on, close item number 3, the director's report. Move on to consent agenda, which is items number 4 through 13. Does any board member wish to remove someone from the consent agenda and hear it separately? No. Anybody up north? Okay, do I have a motion on the consent agenda, items number 4 through 13?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Section 3, we did not take anything separate from the consent agenda. Move on to section 4, item number 14, condemnation resolution number 478, State Route 445, Pure Midway, Sparks, Nevada.
Governor and members of the board, we are working to get our properties and permissions needed for the construction of our Pyramid Highway project that we anticipate bidding in the next couple of months. This particular property is still in negotiations. To ensure that we have the rights we need for construction, we're asking for your approval of the condemnation resolution today. We will continue to negotiate with the property owner, but should we not be able to come to terms, this will enable us to take the actions we need to get the permissions to construct the project.
Okay, I would rather have a willing buyer, willing seller, but if we can't get there, we have to obviously use a condemnation procedure. Do we have any discussion on this item? Do we have any discussion up north? Is there any comment up north? Can you tell me?
No, Governor, we do not.
Okay, thank you. Then do I have a motion on item number 14?
To approve the condemnation resolution.
We have a motion for approval of the condemnation resolution. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing seeing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we do not have an executive session. Move on to item number 16, which is public comment. This is the second time set aside for public comment. Anyone wishing to address the board on any item under our jurisdiction, please step forward, identify yourself for the record, and comments to be limited to 3 minutes. Do we have anybody in Las Vegas here for public comment? I'm going to get you all out of here early. No public comment? Do we have anybody in Carson City for public comment?
Governor, we have no one registered for public comment, and I don't see anybody approaching the podium.
And we have no telephonic or written public
We
comment?
have no telephone.
Okay, then we have no public comment. A closed public comment. We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.